Flower. Once again, you did an amazing job on your Section 2 blog response on Chapter 6. Um, so you kind of just started off talking about instruction as a whole and learning as a whole. And you brought about the question if instruction automatically brings about learning. And I think it's a good question to think about, because you talked about what if you don't like your instructor? What if the topic is not something you're interested in? Um, but you kind of went on to say, that learning always happens, right? You can learn different things from different people. Like you said, if you don't like your teacher, you can learn how you don't want to talk to a patient, or you don't want to teach your class, that sort of thing. Um, and he kind of went on to say, like, the experience that you give while you're teaching and while you're learning is just as a point is important as what information you're relaying or what information that you're teaching. So the experience as a whole brings about learning. And just learning in general, it's not human development. It's not temporary. It's always changing, and it's an instructed process. And you went on to talk about the uh, different processes or the different learning theories. And once again, your slideshow was really helpful and very well organized. So you started with behavior learning theory, which was B.F. Skinner's, and you said it was very linear, which I agree with. We start with reinforcement, then you observe, then you kind of direct your learner into the appropriate or the desired behavior, and then you give your feedback. And you talked about how behavior does play a role, but it's not everything, and I agree with you on that. Um, and it is effective, but it doesn't stand alone. And so I agree that this is, we've learned this, we know this, but we can also incorporate other theories along with it to make it more successful. And then you kind of talked about the cognitive informational processing theory and how it was very cyclic. Talked a lot about memory and storing that in your brains, and it's very complex. Moving on to schema, I like that you related it to the Prezi presentations. I didn't think about it that way, but I can totally see it in how there's different subsections and categories within your learning, and it's very sequential. And so you can click on different things and pull out different pieces of memory. Um, so I like your kind of correlation there. Then moving on to situated learning, where we learn by doing. You talked about how it gives kids a purpose, and I agree. Giving them kind of purpose and learning is really important. As a teacher, giving them kind of not a free for all, but giving them the ownership in their learning is important, and really just having them learn by doing and that hands-on approach is really what they like. Um, Moving on to Gagne's theory, you talked about how it's very diverse. It combines that theory and application, which is good. And you can always combine it. You talked about how it can be combined with schema, uh, and I agree with that. It's there's a lot going on there in that theory, but it's been proven to work. And then I liked your quotes that you gave at the end. Those were really helpful. And just those key points of, tying information together and really knowing that information is going to change and that just the learning process is very cyclical, and we need to remember that when we are teaching. Then I liked at the end when you had your little podium with your top three, um, with number one at Gagnon, number two situated learning, and then your cognitive information process theory. So great job once again. I really like hearing your perspective as someone who's not a teacher, just to see that different kind of viewpoint, which is nice. So once again, great job, and have a great weekend.